the discussion today, the topic today, again, as we said a few minutes ago, is all about, this week, the theme is critical thinking. How do we apply it to our daily lives? Why is it so useful, right? To be able to think from a critical standpoint, okay? Use, critical thinking analysis to work on issues, identify solutions, solve problems, etc., right? So that's what we're going to talk about. And I know that on Wednesday and Thursday we did talk about it already, but today is a little bit different. What we want to do today is specifically talk about our own, and again, just say whatever you feel comfortable with. If you don't want to go into detail about your life, you don't have to, okay? But think about your real life situations, whether they're related to school, whether they're related to your social activities, maybe your career, and think about how critical thinking analysis helps us solve issues in different parts of our lives, okay? I have thousands of examples I could give you guys, okay? But this is not about me, this is about you guys. So we will start with you guys, and then I will also offer some ideas and some examples as well. So, who would like to be the first one to begin?
Not me today.
Not you?
No.
Oh my gosh. Okay, so who would like to, anybody want to be a volunteer? Oh my gosh, you guys are terrible. Okay.
You mean I have to? Since nobody responds.
Johnny was there since the beginning, so...
Okay, great. Johnny.
Johnny?
Johnny's dreaming. Oh, why?
This is not good.
Okay. So okay, then I'll begin, okay? Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
So when I think yes. So when I think of critical thing, well, hopefully people have been here the past couple of days. Okay. So when we think about critical thinking analysis, we're thinking in terms of a analytical, logical way of approaching things. So as we discussed yesterday and the day before, when we think about, and we'll use an example, we talked about it yesterday. We talked about starting a company, right? So with the general idea of starting a company, in order to be successful in not just starting, but maintaining a company, you need to apply critical thinking analysis to everything you do. The example would be you would want to do your research. You want to get data, right? Because the point in obviously having a company is to provide services or products, and obviously to be successful and be profitable in that company. So part of your research is you collect data on your market, whoever you think the demographics are going to be, whether it's students or career professionals or maybe a certain age group. So you're going to collect data on that. You're going to also be looking at different competitors that maybe already provide those services. You're going to do some kind of analysis to show what your competitors offer compared to what you're going to offer, right? And then you're going to identify some options, okay? So part of critical thinking and analysis is like, so if we said we want to open, let's say we're going to use Dreams of Motion again. So let's say we want to open an office in Algeria compared to maybe say Vietnam, okay? So we're going to evaluate the market in both of those countries. We're going to say, let's say for example, that we already have a facility in Tunisia, and Tunisia is co-located to Algeria. It's right next door. It's a neighbor, okay? So maybe the point there is that we already have a market in that region, okay? We understand the culture because the cultures are very similar, okay? Maybe we think that there's a stronger demand because of the location next to Europe for these kind of services and people wanting to study abroad or work in international companies, okay? So let's say these are the pros or the advantages of doing it in Algeria, okay? The disadvantages maybe would be that Well, I'm not even sure what the disadvantages would be, to be honest, okay? But let's say we also consider Vietnam, okay? Now, Vietnam may have a market, okay? There's a lot of younger people in Vietnam, but it's a completely different culture, okay? So now we're having, and maybe we don't have people identified there that would be our points of contact, be the people that would take this company and work with us to open the facilities and run it. So even though there may be a market there, you know, if we weigh the advantages of Algeria versus Vietnam, maybe we say, okay, well, Algeria makes more sense. It has more advantages, okay? So that's how we would do some kind of what we call comparative analysis, right? Comparing two different things, analyzing each one of those options, and then we make a decision, okay? Which one we want to proceed with. That is, in essence, critical thinking analysis, okay? That's the approach you use, okay? Compare that to what we talked about yesterday, creative thinking analysis, okay? Not really analysis, creative thinking, okay? Creative thinking is all about, again, promoting ideas, okay? Brainstorming, thinking about different options, okay? So if we're sitting around a table, we say, okay, guys, give us your feedback on what countries you think we should open an office in. Somebody says Argentina, somebody says China, somebody says Vietnam, somebody else says maybe Algeria or, I don't know, Mexico or something, okay? So that brainstorming session is more exercising your creative thinking skills, okay? Promoting ideas, you're generating ideas, okay? Again, the critical thinking part of it. Hey, Catherine. Okay. So your creative thinking, your critical thinking part of it comes down to now you've made some general high-level decisions or you've identified some approaches, okay? So now we're going to start breaking those down and start comparing them to each other and see which one actually makes the most sense, and you're going to quantify why you came up with that decision. Does that make sense?
Of course.
Sam, does that make sense?
Yeah, sure. It does.
Okay. So again, you know, if I think about, I have literally thousands of examples I could tell you guys. Okay, but let me use. Let me think of a good example. Might be. Oh, okay, my career, okay? So going from school to the military to my government job, okay? So when I think back to those decisions I made, what I would do is I would basically think about it from a critical thinking standpoint. I would say, okay, you know, when I left the military and went to go work in the government, at the time I had my daughter. I was a single parent, okay, raising, you know, a small baby. So I had a lot of things I had to consider about choices, okay? So I had a job offer that was, you know, very, very high salary. And then I had the job offer with the government, okay? So I had a private company and I had a government job offer, okay? So I thought about that. I said, okay, well, let me think about the situation. I have a very young daughter I have responsibility for. So I need to make sure I have a secure, stable job, okay? Because stability was a critical factor for me, right? Because it wasn't just me. It was also, I had to, you know, make sure my daughter was going to be taken care of, okay? So what I did when I was analyzing that situation, I thought about the two different job offers. I compared them to each other. I weighed the pros and cons for each one. And I made the decision to go with the government job because even though it was a little bit less salary than the other job, it had the stability. And for me, as a single parent, that was a very important criteria for me, okay? So that's just a very small example, okay? You know, when we think about, you know, where we want to live, okay? You know, do we want to live in an area that maybe has jobs? Do we want to live in an area that has more environmental, maybe has forests or mountains, okay? You know, we're comparing different factors, right? We're really conducting an analysis of what we're looking at in order to make what we think is the best decision. Okay. So to me, when we think about, again, both of these skills are really important. To me, the reason we started Dreams in Motion was because, from the standpoint of looking at it from a creative thinking, right? We recognize that, hey, there might be some opportunities here. We don't think that somebody is doing what we want to do, okay? And then the actual implementation and the operation of that started to focus more on the critical thinking. So both of these, again, like we talked about yesterday, both of these are related to each other, right? They're skills that are required in almost every case. Okay, so that's it for me. All right, I'm gonna let somebody else go. Okay, so who else wants to go?
I have a question.
Sure.
As far as critical thinking is concerned, you just described your situation, and I think you said that you had to make a decision because of your situation. You had to weigh the pros and cons, and it's very reasonable. You have to make smart decisions, and I think that sometimes, when we are not in the same situation, but we make decisions and based on our because we want to be realistic. And my question is, do we have to be realistic when we make decisions? Because sometimes we achieve things we've never thought of it or could imagine it, and I think critical thinking is great, but on the other hand, it could be a limit.
I think that's a really good point, and that's why I think, like I was saying, that you have to, I think, look at it from both sides. You shouldn't just only look, in my opinion, you shouldn't only consider things from a critical thinking standpoint. And that's why creative thinking is also important, right?
Yeah.
Creative thinking is what gives you the ideas, right? It's again, think about the terminology we use with creative thinking, generative. Okay, we generate ideas, right?
Yeah.
So both of them, and they complement each other. So if I'm sitting around the table, let's say Sam, we got you, and we got everybody else here around the table, and we say, okay, we want to do something in Germany. I don't know what it is. Maybe we want to open a resort. Okay, open a spa. I don't know. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
So okay, wow, somebody says, we ought to build one that's, the biggest one in all of Germany, and we're going to get the most attention from people, or we want to build one that maybe have, instead of one location, we want to have 9 different locations because we're going to get a lot of people see us all over the country. Or someone says, you know what, why even build that? Why not do something else, right? So we're generating different ideas. We're comparing different ideas to each other. Okay, that you're right. That part of the process needs to happen, because if you say, if I walk into a room, I say, okay, we're going to build a building. It's going to be 5 stories tall. Okay, tell me how we're going to do it. We just bypass the creative thinking part, and really now we're focused on the critical thinking, right? If I told you, if I walked into the room, say, okay, we want to do something in Germany. I don't know yet what it is. Okay, does anybody have any ideas about what we can do? Okay, what kind of services could we offer? Okay, right? Yeah. That and someone says, okay, well, maybe people need to practice their Spanish or need to practice their English, or somebody says, well, maybe these other services are things that people here would like, right?
Yeah.
So you're right 100%, because if we only go to the critical thinking analysis stage, we're really bypassing the idea that we need to be open-minded enough to accept different ideas, new ideas, right?
Yeah, because when I think of my career, I was when I was young, at the age of 12, 13,
Uh-huh.
And in Germany, we have another system as far as school is concerned. We have 3 different types of schools. So if you don't have that good marks, you're in a school which is called Hauptschule. And if your marks are okay, you go to the Realschule. And if you have good marks and intelligent, you go to this Gymnasium.
Uh-huh.
And I was at the Hauptschule with the bad marks. And yeah, unfortunately. And I always wanted to go not to the Realschule with the with good marks, but with the best marks, the Gymnasium, the best school. And it was at that time, it was very difficult for me because I didn't know why. I had no idea how. I had no support. I didn't know how to be good enough in order to be at that school. And when I talked to it at that time, my friends and the other students start laughing at me. They said, "You are at the Hauptschule. You're not even in the middle school, Realschule. You're at that school." So I'm thinking of Gymnasium. you know, it's out of reach. And I heard that some people, when they had bad marks, they can make a lot of effort, and when the teacher realizes it that you have good marks, he can help you to change the school. And I did so, but at that time my teacher told me that it's not possible, so I have to find another way. So I was very disappointed, and so I finished that school, the Hauptschule, and unfortunately at that time they created a new system where you can stay a year longer in order to have this what is like in America before the A level. That's another educational level.
When you say A level, what do you mean A level?
A level, I mean, when you have A level, you can go to the university, you know. It is called A level, Abitur in German.
So you're talking about your academic level? Yeah.
I mean, before going to university, you have to have a certain education.
So, well, you're talking about your scores, your test scores, right? Your GMAT and everything else, right? Oh no, this GMAT. Your test scores, right?
Well, actually, this is like, for instance, you go to school, and there's kind of high school, and then you have to have a certain diploma in order to go to the university or college.
Yeah, you have, we call it prerequisites. You have certain prerequisites you have to meet. You have to have satisfied certain course criteria to be eligible for, yes.
Yeah, and I needed that, and I didn't know how to do it, and so it wasn't realistic to go to this school or even study at a university. And but still I had it on my mind. And I think as far as critical thinking is concerned, at that time, if I said, okay, this is a pros and cons, I would have more cons than pros, because it was very difficult to go to change the school and to have the prerequisites. But still, I didn't change my mind, and I started to gather information and try to find a way to do this. And at the end, I graduated from that school and went to university. And I think this is because I wasn't realistic. If I was realistic at that time, I wouldn't think of my A level of college or university. You know what I mean?
Well, this is where, I think that you bring up a really good point that I wanted to, let's think again about the topic that we said we're going to talk about. So if we think about critical thinking and we think about how that relates to our, how we want to achieve different goals, right? Mm-hmm. It's a iterative. You know what? Have you ever heard the word iterative? Iterative, iterative. Yeah, iterative process. In other words, it's like an ongoing related process, right? Mm-hmm. Because if I'm sitting down, my dream when I was a kid, I wanted to work. I wanted to be a park ranger. I wanted to work in the forest and protect animals. Okay, right?
Okay.
That was what I wanted because I really love the outdoors, and I wanted to, I wanted to be a park ranger or a forest ranger. Okay, things happened. That's not the path I took. But had I wanted to continue that, of course, from a creative thinking standpoint, okay, as a teenager or as a young adult, you're thinking about what you want to do in the future, right? You say, oh, I want to work with the environment. Maybe I want to be an environmental lawyer or something, okay? Or maybe I want to work in science, okay? I want to find the latest cure for cancer or cure for cancer, whatever it is, okay? So that's all part of that creative thinking process. Now, as you start to get closer to actually, and you define your goals, right? Okay, well, in order to do B, I've got to do A, okay? And A is obviously your education. In order to be a chemist, you have to have a certain education. In order to be a doctor or a lawyer, okay. So as you start to lay out these goals, that they're all related to each other, right? Because they're like you were saying a second ago. They're what we call prerequisites. In order to do B, you've got to do A. In order to do C, you've got to do B and A. Okay, so as we proceed down that path, now that's where our critical thinking starts to kick in, right? Because now we start to go less in terms of, okay, well, I've got a general idea of what I want to do. How am I going to do it, right? What is the process? What are the procedures? Okay, what is the best process? Okay, what maybe I have a choice to go to two different schools. The two schools both offer the opportunity to become, a chemist or a scientist. But you're going to evaluate each school in terms of its benefit, right? Which one has the better reputation? Which one maybe is more cost effective, right? Which one is in a better location? Maybe it's more convenient because it's closer to where you live. So maybe you can stay with your family and save on cost. So, this is where that relationship between our creative thinking, critical thinking, and how we achieve our goals all come into some kind of relation with each other.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I agree.
So they are related.
Yeah. Everyone is so silent. Come on, guys. I'm sure you have something to say about that, right?
Well, the thing is...
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, so... it's like, I think in one of our material on Wednesday, I forget what it said, but it says something about... an idea without action is just an idea, okay? Right?
Yeah.
It's like okay, well, I have this idea, I want to do something, but if I don't ever implement any kind of plan, and if I don't use my critical thinking process to make sure that I can execute my plan, and that it's the right plan, then it really, is I don't want to say it's a waste, but it's really not going to help me to achieve what I want to achieve. And this is where it's so important, that again, whether it's a small thing, whether it's a big thing, and we can relate these skills to to any environment, any situation, whatever it is. Okay. When you hire somebody, right, you're going through a critical thinking analysis process. When you hire somebody, right, you're comparing resumes or CVs. You're thinking about when they're doing the interview, what skills they said they have, how they communicate. You're assessing one against the other. You're evaluating one against the other, and then you make a decision, right? You went through a critical thinking analysis process to hire somebody, right? So it's something that's actually very interesting. Or to solve a crime, a detective, a detective or somebody that's investigating a crime. Exactly. You're looking at the data, you're looking at the evidence, right? Being a judge, okay, that's probably the ultimate critical, right?
Right. It's like
being a jury,
It's like you have a house. There was a crime in that house, and the only one who was there at the moment that you arrived was the butler, right? And somebody else say, okay,
It's always the butler.
the butler did it, right? And there's where you start applying your critical thinking, right? You analyze the evidence, you know. But somebody else has come and say, well, I think that butler did it, and you ask, but why? Who else could have been done? Who else could have done it?
Right.
I cannot think of any other way to explain it. And then you say, well, we need to evaluate the evidence. We need to see and think it through, and not just assume things, right? That's another example.
Yeah, you know, in yeah, I mean, there are certain very obvious, like the example you provided, you know, or again, if you're in a legal environment and you're the judge or the jury, of course, you know, you're evaluating data, you're evaluating evidence and making a decision based upon that. If you're trying to make a business decision, obviously you're going to be applying it. Okay. So yeah, I now there are things that are much more subjective. Okay, this is when we get into discussing our opinion, right? Right, when we say, okay, I think this country is better than that country. Okay, right? Country A is better than country B. Okay, well, why would you say that? Well, because I think. See, and that's the key word. I think, right?
Right.
And there's nothing wrong with having an opinion. Right. We all have opinions, okay? But it's usually based upon, and you used a good word, Johnny, assumptions. It's often based upon maybe a bias, right?
Right.
You're biased one way or another, so you're not necessarily looking at things objectively, okay?
Right.
So when we think about, you know, comparing things like that, you know, unless you have some kind of defining criteria, okay, well, what are your measures you're going to use to say, you know, better?
Right.
Maybe crime rate, right? Maybe healthcare access, maybe income levels, you know, employment rates. Now you can turn that into a critical thinking analysis process, because now you've applied some measures to what better means, right?
Yeah. Problem is, when you present with critical thinking things. And you make people think, some people are not comfortable with realizing the truth, or realizing that, well, they might have to change the way they think, right? For instance, let's suppose that you said that your country is better than mine. You present with some statistics or some kind of data. You went and you did your homework. You actually present something, right? And I present mine, and we compare both of them, and in fact, if we agree on certain criteria and certain standards, and you actually prove your point that your country is better, you know, it's very comfortable for the other person to say, okay, well, yes, your country is better than mine. You know, some people don't want to go there, you know, difficult for them.
Well, but you said something that's really important, I think, and that is coming up with common measures. Okay. Right. Because if people could, you know, there was a project I was working on in my other job, and that was the whole idea, is that we had maybe 8 or 9 different organizations that were measuring things differently. Okay. Right. So you know, their source of what they're measuring was different. So you can't really relate things if you're measuring, if your source of what you're measuring is different. You need to have common standards that you apply, right?
Exactly.
And criteria that are linked to those standards, right?
Exactly.
And that gives you the common ground to work. Now, if you could do that, then you can make an objective-based approach, because you've got an agreement to, you know, use a standard. But if your criteria, well, you're going to measure maybe I don't know, maybe natural beauty. You're going to measure, you know, the size of the rainforest. You're going to measure something, and then I'm over here measuring completely different factors. Obviously, there's no common ground.
Exactly. Measuring beauty, you know, what makes a person beautiful. Yeah. Some people may give some kind of a physical qualities. You may give some personality qualities, right? So we will be talking about different things. So our standards will be different. So when we say beauty, we will get different data. So yes, we need to reach a common ground of definitions and what we are talking about. No?
Exactly. And that's why I mean, I'm the kind of person that I think science is important. I also, think there are things that aren't always rooted in fact. Okay, I think that there are things on both sides, that are not so. What was the word for it? Is it evidentiary?
Justify it now.
I believe that there are things that we cannot.
You're gonna falsify?
Well, we cannot. I think there are things that we cannot always explain through science or facts. I think there are things in this world that we cannot explain. I think. Okay, now I recognize that. I would even say probably the majority of situations, to be able to point to a fact. Again, this is something, Johnny, we talked about before. Our beliefs, right? Mm-hmm. So why do you believe this? Okay, we'll use religion. Okay, just for sake of example, why do you believe that? Why do you believe this? Well, okay, there's no, where do you point to factual data, right? And so that's something that's different than obviously than building a building or showing how old the Earth is, right? That you can go to science, right, and say, okay, we measured this, it's pretty black and white, right? So that's where we have our challenges, And some people, and to me, where I have a problem with this is that some people believe exclusively in one area and not the other area, okay? And some people only believe in the things that are less fact-based. They may only believe in things the way they feel, okay? Other people may only believe in what they can see and touch, okay? And I believe there's something that's in the middle of those two, okay? So this is a good starting point. Oh, this is going to get exciting, okay? So what do you think? So Johnny and I have been carrying this conversation. So what do you guys think about what we just said?
It was confusing. No. I'm just kidding. I don't know. I think people are different. Situations are different, obviously, and I think that critical thinking is not necessarily a positive thing in all cases. And this goes back, I think, to something Sam mentioned. And actually, I read something about this. This is what they call critical thinking in some cases, or most cases, can be a dream killer. Because, for example, if I want to do something, if I have a decision to make, to me personally, I'm not the kind of person I used to be, I'm not the kind of person of questioning. Like, okay, if I do that, how it should happen, what do I need to make this happen? I think it just kills the spontaneous side of it. Because I think, okay, some areas, some decisions require some level of critical thinking, but there are other decisions that you just need to make spontaneously. You don't necessarily need to question everything. You don't necessarily need to know, okay, what will happen, when it should happen, how it should happen. This is just killing yourself. And actually, I think in those cases, the line between critical thinking and skepticism is not that. I mean, it's a very thin line, because the more you question things, and I think this is why in many cases scientists, they are very skeptical, because they question so many things and they are used to have evidence to anything and to everything, that they don't necessarily let the spontaneous side of them and also the intuition to play a role. So I just think, again, I mean, some situations, okay, critical thinking is nice. For example, when you meet someone new, so it's always nice to kind of do your part of the work, and instead of being judgmental, It's always nice to think and look at the situation from different perspectives, from different angles. So I think in that case, it could be a good thing, a positive thing. But again, for example, if we talk about very sensitive topics like politics or religion, to me, critical thinking in that case is not necessarily productive, is not necessarily positive. And I think this is why maybe we are not so able to have very adult and mature discussions with people that have different beliefs from us, because I mean, instead of being just accepting and trying to say, okay, this is your opinion, this is my opinion, maybe we are different, but I accept that difference. I'm not going to try to change you. I'm not going to try to influence your opinion. So I think in that case, intuition is nice, being spontaneous is nice too. And I think the problem maybe, the more you age, the more you tend to analyze things, and this is not necessarily good. And we always think about kids. I mean, kids, they don't necessarily question everything. They have this kind of, they are innocent. So sometimes you just need to tell them something and they just receive it in a very positive way. So they don't necessarily need to dissect it, right? And just see all the angles. Okay, why is that? How does it have this color? How is it behaving in this way? So they don't necessarily ask so many questions. They don't necessarily question everything, every aspect of anything. So I think this is a good thing too.
I disagree.
And to me, this is where creative thinking, to me, might be, okay, let me finish. And to me, this is where maybe creative thinking is a better option for some situations. Because imagination is a very, I don't know how to say that. It's not so, because our brain sometimes is so tricky. And this is why we are so anxious so many times, because we are trying to understand everything. And to me, we don't necessarily need to understand everything.
Well, I do.
Yeah, go ahead, Johnny. Why do you disagree? Tell me.
Well, I disagree with saying that, that kids,
Yeah.
because they don't
Good. Go
question
ahead. Why?
things, they don't ponder about things, or it's like saying, well, it is good to remain ignorant, like
Yeah.
not knowing about things, not know about the truth about things, what is true, what could be true, what is, and saying that, you don't need to worry about that. Just go ahead and believe whatever you want, or go ahead and just accept whatever everybody's saying as a fact, as a truth. That to me is not good. It's not something good. It's just saying it is good to remain ignorant. And to say that if kids do that, that's a good thing, because they don't have to worry about deep things or about big things in life. It wouldn't be better if we give them the tools to actually discern the truth from just stories, or if they see something, how can they know how can they understand what they're watching or what they're seeing? It just saying that just go ahead, just believe whatever you feel like. That's enough. They're going to live their entire life thinking like that, or with that kind of belief. Beliefs inform our actions. So if you believe false things and you think that they are true, for instance, that will dictate what you're going to do with your life, what kind of decisions you're going to make. So wouldn't it be better to discern the facts from the fiction, so that you can make informed decisions in your life? And it wouldn't be important to teach kids how to do that?
To me, it's not about making the difference between what is a fact, because again, it's relative. What you can consider as being a fact, I can think, okay, this is your opinion. This is not factual to me.
A fact is not an opinion. A fact is a fact. It's something that you can demonstrate. Facts are not opinions. An opinion cannot make a fact.
Yeah, so if you look at something I read actually yesterday, how to make a difference between a fact and an opinion. Actually, a fact, you can prove if it's wrong, if it's true or wrong, right? If it's true or false. This is what we call a fact in general. A fact can be true, it cannot be true. But an opinion, we cannot necessarily judge. We cannot. It's just your opinion, just your perspective, right?
I don't
and
think
to
that's
me,
a fact. A fact is an observation, it's a phenomenon, it's something that happens, something that occurs. That's what we call fact.
Well, a fact is something you can measure against a standard.
Exactly.
Well, okay, it's a fact is something you can measure against a standard. But whose standard? This goes right back to what we said earlier. So whose standard? So you and I, okay, so let's go back to the idea that we might judge one country over another country. But if we're not applying the same standard, it will always be our opinion. Okay. Now, if we do apply the same standard, now we can measure that, right? The problem that I think, and to be honest, listening to both of you, I think we have to be careful not to be so rigid. And this is where I think that when we get into this critical thinking, I have a lot of analysts that work for me. Okay, and the purpose of an analyst is they analyze data, right? They sit down at the computer, they analyze data, right? That's all they do. Okay. They're not looking at what if, okay? They're looking at data, okay? It's black and white, okay? In or out, okay? So it's very binary, okay? And so that's useful and that's important. But in our world today, you need to have more than critical thinking skills, I believe, and it's a combination, again, both of these things. Because if you only rely upon critical thinking skills, you're not going to generate new ideas. You're not going to be, again, creativity is something that should be promoted. We should promote creativity. We should promote the way people think, okay? Outside of fact, you know? Because I firmly believe that in this world, we have things that are provable, fact-based. We have things that we believe, also important. Both of these qualities are important. The world cannot, I don't think, survive unless you have both of these mindsets present.
I disagree.
Okay, well, why do you disagree?
Well,
let me ask my question
Sure.
a better way. So what would happen in this world, you think, if in terms of future technologies, future growth for mankind, if there were not people that were thinking creativity from a creative
creatively?
Okay, yes.
Well, creativity
from a creative standpoint.
No. I'm not arguing against creativity per se. I think it's important to have creativity, right? Because how else can we come up with new ideas? I agree with that. I was not talking about that though. I was talking about what is the most consistent, reliable method to discern truth from fantasy. What do you use every day to discern whether your house is on fire because somebody else said so, or what? How can you know what? If someone says your house, he call you right now and say, well, you suppose you are not in your house, right? And somebody calls you on the phone and say your house is on fire. What method do you have to know if that is true or not? What would you do? Would you just go on faith, or would you just actually apply some kind of methodology? Would you do something? Would you test something? Would you gather data somehow?
Well, so that kind of example, if someone says your house is on fire, I mean, I would use my visual skills and I would look and say, oh, okay,
you will look for data,
okay?
right? Visual data.
So my eyes would tell me, huh?
You will look for data, right? You will look for some evidence, right?
Yes, there's visual data. Yeah, I observed that my house is on fire.
Right.
Therefore, to me, my house is on fire. Right.
Oh, right. So you wouldn't just believe just because somebody says so, right?
Right. In that situation, you're correct.
Correct. So what method is that?
Because if I go ahead.
What is the name of that method?
What was the name of that method? I observe. It's observation.
Exactly. Observe, evaluate, make predictions, right?
Yeah, I mean that's pretty right. That's pretty black and white. Yeah,
that's science.
So, but I don't. Well, okay, but the point is that both skills are important in society. You cannot I don't think you cannot progress forward in any environment, okay, or maybe not any environment, but in most environments you cannot progress forward unless people apply both of those skills. In other words,
I agree.
My belief, absence of fact, is still important to me. And my belief, even if someone can't say, well, touch it, smell it, taste it, hear it, see it, right? Using your senses, right? I can feel it, okay? Now, that is not scientific. I agree 100% that's not scientific, okay? That's belief. Belief is not science, right?
Correct.
So if I believe in something, that's not, but that's just as important, and I believe, because people do things based upon their belief, right?
Correct.
I believe.
Beliefs inform actions.
Okay, so here's a good example. Say again?
Beliefs inform your actions.
What was that? Well, belief in some cases drives your actions, right? Belief drives again, it's a two-phase approach. Right. If I believe that we can do something as an organization to be successful, okay, now maybe I haven't done my homework yet. Maybe I've just looked at things at a very top view. Maybe I just have these ideas, but that starts the ball rolling. As the ball rolls down the path, now you start employing your critical thinking skills to see if you can actually execute it based upon data, based upon evidence. So both of these beliefs are not beliefs. Both of these mindsets are employed, are being used, right?
Yeah, but just like you said, if
so my point is.
Go ahead.
They're equally to me they're, and I think we're getting a little bit into what we're going to talk about tomorrow for the debate. So maybe I need to think about a different way of saying it. But both of these are, well, actually I am saying, okay. So, but I think the thing is that critical thinking definitely has its role, and I think in a lot of situations, if we did not, use it, we would not succeed at doing. Creative thinking has its role, and if we did not employ it or use it, we would never get to the point where we can engage our critical thinking, okay? Because it's a process, right?
Correct.
We have somebody that's very much into science here, that works in a lab every day or almost every day. Catherine? on the critical thinking and true statement?
Creative thinking and critical thinking. Yeah, but I think here, the critical, the people really encourage the critical discussion. Yeah, and for example, if some students or some professor gives a presentation, and then the audience will give a lot of questions. So I think it's a way to show your critical thinking. Yeah.
Okay, so how does so you're saying in your environment specifically, it's more focused because again it's more of it's a science-based environment, so obviously you're looking at data, you're measuring things, etc., right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, fair enough. So Sam, you have anything else you wanted to say about this?
Yeah, actually, I partly agree with Jamila when she said critical thinking is not good for imagination. I have the same opinion because, as I've already said, critical thinking prevents us from achieving higher goals or believe in things that seem to be out of reach. And intuition is also very important, as well as science. As for instance, she said science is people are also skeptical as far the scientists, for instance, and this is true. I believe, for instance, if we think of climate change, well, people don't really believe in it, and there aren't facts that prove that the climate is going to change in the next, I don't know, in next years, because a lot of people don't believe in climate change or global warming in general. And a lot of things changed, but no one can say for sure that it has to do with global warming, and this is why it is not scientists are not supported in this case as far as climate change is concerned. But critical thinking should apply to politics and religion, and this is where I contradict Jamila, because she said as far as religion is concerned or regarding politics, critical thinking shouldn't play a role, right, Jamila?
Your microphone's muted, Jamila.
Okay, yeah.
I said it can be dangerous.
Yeah, okay, it can be dangerous, and I believe it is important. Critical thinking is very important in religion and politics, because when I talk to people who believe, I don't know, whether Christianity or Buddhism, and I ask them, why do you think that this is with this lifestyle or these rules are should be applied, or are wise? And most of them were like, yeah, you know, my parents or my ancestors had the same religion. And in this case, I think critical thinking is very important, because at the end of the day, you're making decision about your whole life, and you should question religion in order to know whether it is okay, whether you accept it. You accept, for instance, Christianity or Buddhism or whatever, and shouldn't just do it because your parents or your environment believe in it. Otherwise, you wouldn't be. You would just adapt to it, and you wouldn't use your mind. Yeah, and this is especially politics. Politics is also should also be questioned, and people should find out whether what is true and what is false. Yeah.
Well, I think this is funny, and if I no, this is funny in a good way. Okay, not like it's not sarcasm, but I think humans, they question. I mean, when it's convenient for us, we believe something. We don't even question that. But when something bothers us, we tend to be very picky, very cerebral. We use our brain. Okay, I need to find where's the flaw, right? Because I don't like that. Because this approach is not good for me. And I think, to me, questioning, because we have a small group, so I think we can go to this topic. To me, questioning religion, I would never criticize someone because of their beliefs. And I'm 100% sure you have millions of Muslims, you have millions of Christians, and you have people that don't believe in any religion, right?
Yeah.
So to me, who am I to go and say and ask someone, in order to follow a religion, you have to find evidence. You have to, for example, do that and do that. To me, this is a very personal thing, and it's like questioning choices people make. To me, all the choices I make every day I make a lot of decisions, whether they are small, whether they are big. And I ultimately believe that the smallest decisions make the biggest changes in our lives. But we don't necessarily question all the decisions we make, because we just trust our feeling, we just trust our intuition. And in other cases, we trust people around us. To me, this is very important. Even if, for example, someone says, okay, sounds like a very good opportunity, you should do that, because I trust that person, I will not necessarily, have this critical thinking approach, because to me it's very important. Even if it's a bad investment, I think it's a very important thing to trust people around us. And if you start questioning everything, it just kind of you become very, like I said, skeptical. You become like not trustworthy. You don't trust people around you. You don't trust the environment around you, right?
Why would it have to be a bad thing?
I don't believe that. Well, you should not. Well, I don't believe that you. This is my way of thinking or my mentality. Well, I'm trustworthy. I also trust people. I don't trust anyone in my environment, because as far as trust is concerned, one has to be very careful. And the reason why I think it is important for me to question religion is when I grew up in Germany, and I was there are also other Muslims. We have a different kind of lifestyle as non-Muslims, and at a certain age I started to ask, well, why do I have to pray? Why do I have to fast? Why do I have to do this thing? I ask my friends, she's Christian, why do you have to spend every Sunday in church? I mean, this is not it's not criticizing. It is like, why do you have to do it? Why am I supposed to do thing where I'm not very convinced of it, or I don't know what the reason behind it. It's not criticizing. It's like when I met my friend, she's atheist, and I ask her, why do you believe in nothing? It's not again, it's not criticizing. It's like just to know why did she decide to have this lifestyle, which I find very interesting. So I think you have to ask, because at the end of the day, you're making decision about your whole life. So when I grew up and I started to read about Islam, why people have to fast, why have to pray, etc., or like Buddhism, why, because they pray as well, and I found it very interesting, and learned about the impact that this has on our lives, on our health, on environment, and then this is why I became convinced. I was like, okay, this is so good, and I have to do it, and I'm convinced of this lifestyle. you know. It's not criticizing. I'm criticizing anyone. I'm like, I don't criticize atheists or Buddhists or Muslims. I just want to have this knowledge, want to know why people chose this lifestyle. Why they are practicing this religion. This is why I find very interesting. And I think people have to question it instead of saying, yeah, my parents did it, so I'm doing it as well. This is my opinion, and this is why I didn't just became Muslim, but question it, you know. Yeah.
Well, I think to me, this is the soft version of critical thinking, which is nice. Again, it's very good because you need to understand why you do things, right?
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, it's good. I mean, it's very helpful. But to me, I am kind of I like the fact that some things cannot be explained, to be honest, because this helps me, and I feel like the more I question things, and actually this is I think it's been proven scientifically that people that are less educated are happier. They are, because and if you know, from my personal experience, I come from a very small village, and the people that are not necessarily educated, they are very happy because they are not questioning things around them. They just go with the flow, and they are very light. They don't have so much pressure, because trying to understand things is a pressure too, because sometimes you can understand things and sometimes you just can't. You can get it, right? Even if, for example, there are some people I can have a discussion with them, a mature discussion with them about, for example, why I am a Muslim. So I had someone, they were asking me a question, are you a Muslim? I said yes. Why you are not wearing a veil, right? Why you are dressing in this way? Why you are interacting with people in that way, right? So there are people you can have this mature discussion with them, but there are other people you cannot have a discussion with them, because to me, you can ask me some questions, I will be very receptive, but if you go further, if you go really deep, there are questions I would never answer. I would not, because I don't want to, because it's very personal, right? So to me, critical thinking skills, again, it's very good. No, they are not scary, because I do have the answers. Something that is scary for me is something that I don't necessarily understand. I mean, I don't have the answers, right? Sometimes it's scary, sometimes it's very comfortable, because when you don't have this pressure of understanding things, of questioning things, life is like I don't know how to say, but there's a comfort to me. There's a comfort, because excuse me?
He said ignorance is bliss.
Yeah. Is it?
No, it's not about.
You're saying
that.
No,
it's not ignorance to me.
You are saying that.
I don't understand.
You are saying that if you don't question things, if you don't, pay attention to details, or if you don't evaluate things, you don't apply critical thinking on things, you will be happier. And what you were saying before, that people who don't analyze things, they don't ponder deeply about some things, they are happier. I don't agree with that. I don't think the happiness is tied to how much you know, how much you want to know or not. Happiness have to do with other things too.
Well, we have a different perspective. But again, for example, to me, first of all, ignorance to me is a very bad word. It's a very bad word, because either you choose to learn about something, either you choose not. Either you have the opportunity to do something, to learn about something, either you don't have the opportunity. It doesn't mean, for example, they are ignorant. For example, I have people, they never went to school. They are not ignorant to me. Maybe they know much, much more. It's not because they didn't have the opportunity to get an education that they are ignorant. To me, ignorance is a word that should never exist.
Well, you may have a different kind of definition of the word then.
Yeah.
So, one thing... Go ahead, Mary. Go ahead.
Jamina, sometimes you have to accept, like me, I am such an ignorant person, right?
No.
Well, no,
I
don't agree.
one thing that listening to the three of you, it's interesting because to me, what we believe comes from the inside out. It doesn't come from the outside in.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm a firm believer that my beliefs, my faiths are not for anybody to judge. That's my decision. Okay, that's how I want to, just like I would respect what other people think as well. So in thinking about what Sam was saying, I grew up in a Christian household. Okay, I went to church. Okay, but it wasn't so much that my family did it, or it was just that the values I learned in that faith were important to me. Okay, important enough for me to feel like I wanted to have that belief. It wasn't based upon evaluating this against that or saying that this is good and that's bad. Okay, and to be honest, if someone says, "Well, prove this," well, I'll prove. It's like how well, prove it's not. Okay, so to me, there are certain things that are provable. There are certain things that are fact based. There are other things that are based upon our belief. To me, that's fine, and
that's not the problem,
I'm perfectly comfortable in any.
That's not. I mean, I agree that nobody should judge what you believe. What you believe. The problem begins when because of what you believe, you try to others believe the same thing too. That's where the problem comes from. Where for instance, if you try to tell the government what they should do because it's what you believe, or if you are in a government position and you want to try to come up with some kind of law based on what you believe, and you try to make other people do certain things, there is where the problems begin, right? Start to begin. Or when you say, well, you should believe the same things that I do, then there's where you have to prove what you believe is actually accurate or useful.
I agree with that, and that's the difference between our opinion, our ideas, our belief, our faith. Okay, and both sides have very powerful arguments. My belief, my feeling about certain things is not based upon any data. Okay, it's not based upon having done necessarily research. Okay, and to me, it's as powerful than anything that's been promoted through data or through research.
What you're saying is that what you believe is not based on reality, right?
No.
That's what you're saying. It's not based on data, and the only way to come up with data is measuring things, right? Okay. What kind of data would you have without having data? What basis do you have to believe whatever you believe?
What kind of data?
I don't understand your question, to be honest.
I mean, when you believe something...
No, I think what Johnny's trying to do is discriminate.
No. If you believe something, it's because you have a reason to believe that, right? You have reasons. You have a base.
Yep.
A foundation, right?
Yes.
Okay, you need to apply critical thinking to evaluate whether those reasons are based on reality or not, right?
No.
You have to have some data,
Not necessarily.
Well, otherwise you are just believing for believing. You are not believing in something that is based on reality.
No.
Yes.
No, Johnny. For example, every day we do things. No, we do things because they make us feel good. Okay? I eat, for example, I eat this kind of food. Maybe I hate it, but I do eat it because it makes me feel good. It tastes good. I love it. So I don't need any kind of data. The only data is my taste, right? That's it. So for example, I do something because I like it. Maybe other people don't like it, but I do it because I like it. It's my intuition. It's my feeling. It doesn't mean it's connected in any ways to my brain or to my critical thinking.
The problem is when you try to impose that onto somebody else. So for example, if for you something is great and it makes you feel awesome, that's not enough to tell, well, eat this because it will make you feel awesome, because the awesome feeling that comes from eating this thing is the truth, you know. And it wouldn't be enough just to say because it makes me feel better. You know, you need to actually prove the other person why it will be good for that person too. Your personal feelings, your personal experiences is not enough. It is not for you. That's okay.
You know, Johnny, I think
it's enough. It's enough.
Yeah.
Yeah, for the individual.
No, for the individual. But I also think, and we will give the opportunity. I think Soso is here. I do believe that we are a dynamic entity. For example, what I used to like a few years ago, I hate it today, right? And what I used to hate a few days ago, years ago, I like it now. I used to not believe in things. I do believe now. Right? So I think even our thoughts, our personality, we change. We are dynamic. And for example, you have people, they were Muslims for years and then they changed, right? Because it's dynamic. It's an ongoing construction, right? You build your personality, you build your thoughts, you shape. So
sure,
but because when you say reality, what can seem to be real and true today can appear to be false tomorrow.
No, it wouldn't. I mean, facts are facts.
This is why I said
facts are just things that happen, things that are there. I mean, a fact will not change tomorrow because you like it today and tomorrow you didn't like it anymore. It wouldn't disappear. Reality doesn't change based on what you like or what you prefer.
It will.
It doesn't. Either something is there, for instance.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. Either cigarette is bad for your health or it's not. What makes you... Go ahead, Rick.
Yeah.
We have a debate.
No. But the point is, facts don't change. Facts don't change, but the way you measure things may change because, again, a fact is based upon something that we measure, right?
Right.
Right?
Fact is something that is there.
If we choose
it's a phenomenon.
You know, okay. So if we all agree that cold, okay? So once we define those measures, then we can measure the temperature and then we know whether it's hot or cold. That's a fact, right? Today it's a hot day. Why? Because it met this threshold, okay? But we can choose to modify what we define as hot, okay? We can measure that different ways, okay?
Right.
So,
you can
so
measure,
the point
right?
Is
it's not that it's hot because you like it or you don't like it, right?
Right. We've come up with a common standard that we apply. The thing is though, I think that, you know, just like we can measure, okay, you can't necessarily measure somebody's belief, but you can measure, again, if we agree, we can measure their attitude, okay? We can measure their motivation, right? We do this all the time, right? We do it in a workplace environment. We measure people's motivation, okay? You can do those things, okay? So you just have to come up with a way to measure that. Now, what leads to motivation? I would make the argument for me, okay, this is for Rick, my attitude and my motivation comes from what I believe in.
That's fine.
No.
It comes from what I believe in, okay? It doesn't come from okay? So for me, I can measure, not from a primary standpoint, but from a secondary standpoint, I can measure my belief. Okay, right? Because if I take my belief and I translate it to my performance at work, which is relative to my motivation to do something, that's a way of measuring it, right?
I don't understand what you mean by measure my belief.
So you know, there's certain things. What I'm saying is, if I believe that for Rick, I believe that the reason why, for me, I perform at a certain level, whether here or my other job, is because of my attitude. Okay, attitude is something that people would say is subjective, right? Right. For me, though, I think you can measure your performance against your attitude. Okay, right? I think you can. All right. So what I've done now is I've taken something that may be subjective, but I've related it to something that's measurable. Okay. So I've established a relationship between something that's subjective, not easy to measure, to something that you can measure. You can measure performance, right?
Go ahead.
Right? You can measure somebody's performance, right? You say, okay, this is the standard you're gonna, that you need to meet to show a certain level of performance. You can measure that. I think all of us would agree you can measure that. Okay. So once you determine what those performance measures are, okay, you can say if you're doing A, B, and C, you're performing at this level. And if you can make the connection between why you're doing A, B, and C, okay, now you're able to connect your attitude, okay, to specific measurable task. Okay.
Yeah, but I wasn't talking about that, but that's fine.
Okay. Anyway. Okay. So I think we have so. Did you want to say something? So. Was Jamila showing off her lights? Okay.
Yeah, she wanted to see them. It's fun.
Okay. Oh my gosh. Okay. So did you want to say something?
I hope so.
I guess at the end of the day, again, I think that questioning things is good. We should question. I myself have been a promoter, but I don't think that we should question everything.
Yep.
Okay. Because I believe there are certain things. I don't question certain things. I don't question my belief. I don't. Okay. I accept it. It is what it is. Okay. I don't try to break it down and say, okay, well, blah blah blah. Okay. Because for me, for Rick, it's what I believe, and that's not from outside coming in, that's from inside going out. Okay. There's no external factor that's driving that. Okay.
That's fine.
Internal factors that drive that.
Well, it matters when someone really wants to know whether they believe is true or not. If you really care about truth, then you would question things. Right?
Well, for you, yes.
Yeah,
For you,
I care about what is true or not.
I would say no. I would disagree. My religion, I'm not going to question it. Well, I care what's true too, but my belief is a separate category. I don't say because of my belief. I don't have to prove that to somebody. I don't have to find a way to measure that because it belongs to me.
Sure, unless you want to impose that to somebody else.
How did we perform today in Dreams of Motion? That's what's that? Now, if I want to okay. So if I want to say, okay, you believe this way, I want you to prove to me why you believe this way. Now, to me, I'm being hypocritical, right?
Right.
Are we still talking about critical thinking?
Yep.
I don't know. The topic.
Yep. For instance,
well, it comes down to there are things that I think. Go ahead.
A few weeks ago, the government here in my country took a significant portion of the retirement payment for retired people, and the government is all the time saying on all medias that this is good for them, but they don't prove it. They don't show in any way how would that be good for the retired citizen. They don't say. They just say it will be good. It will be good. It will be good for you. So I mean, when something, especially if it feels bad, if it feels wrong, but if somebody says this is what you should believe too, or this is what you should think, but they don't meet the burden of proof, then I mean, how am I going to be convinced that what what they are saying is actually true or not? So they need to provide some kind of evidence. They need to provide some kind of proof that what they're saying is the truth.
Well, I think it's something like that. Yeah, it's something like that. And that example you just gave, I would definitely agree. You know, I think there are certain things that we talk about sometimes in our lives that we should question, and we should ask for something that that is measurable in terms of a response. You know, I also believe there are things that I don't question. Okay, and I will never question, and I'm okay with that. And and that's why both of these have their roles in our lives. That's the essence of the idea, faith and belief. Is that you don't have to prove it to anybody. Okay, it's our personal faith and belief is something that we should never have to prove to anybody. Period. Okay. Just as we would never ask somebody else to prove it to us, right?
I disagree.
Well, it's obvious you disagree.
I respectfully disagree. Yeah.
Okay. Well, again, this is the world we live in, and we have people, that I think, have many different views. I think that, again, there are ways to measure things that are even more subjective, maybe, but by themselves you can't measure them. You have to relate them to other things. Okay, anybody else want to? I think we're probably almost done. I think Sosa was trying to come. Anybody else? Sam, Saif, Mary?
Yes.
Anybody want to say anything?
Just now I said I was ignorant. Ignorance sounds not a good word, but for me, it's not a bad word. And I always find that just now when you were talking about critical thinking and creative thinking, and you mentioned a lot of things, I guess, which were difficult for me to reach. And every time when you mention something which I didn't know, I always tell myself, oh, that's why I needed to learn more. Of course, ignorance is not a bad word for me, right? It drives me to learn something I didn't know,
right. Well, yeah, I think that we have to consider. Ignorance is a word that we think about. Okay, somebody did not get the opportunity. Are you okay, Catherine?
Oh yeah.
Are you all right?
She's dying, I guess.
Are you dying?
Sorry, my bad.
Ma.
Oh, I didn't mute the microphone. Sorry. I just realized it. Sorry.
Oh my god. Okay. So hey, Robin, how are you? Okay. So did you have something you wanted to say?
Hello.
Hey.
Finally. I just speaking on the mic by myself, and I recognized that I was speaking on my own. Okay.
How did you enjoy your conversation?
Yeah, no one was complaining. Everything was agreed. No one said nothing, so it was great. Yeah. Yeah, I didn't understand what you were talking about. That's why I can't add anything. But yeah, concerning the topic, critical thinking, I don't know, how did you define it? How did you define, for example, critical thinking?
Well,
is it someone who has built his way of thinking based on logic?
Yeah, critical thinking is basically. Hey, Jamila, can you mute your mic? Jamila?
Yeah, sorry. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So critical thinking is basically defined as a way of measuring, breaking down different ideas and being able to measure them in such a way that you could come to some kind of decision or to come to some kind of conclusion in a logical, rational way. That's basically, you know, what it is.
I see. Yeah, because we have to agree on something to start, for example, a discussion. And based on that, I heard you saying creative thinking. I think that they complete each other. When you have critical way of thinking, you will end up. The result is you will have a creative way of thinking, of course, because you're always asking why something is like that, why you do this. For example, you know that very well known incident happened to Newton. For example, he said that when he was laying on under the tree, and that apple fell on his head, and he said, and the first question he, after that start, and he start to build why is that, and nowadays we have the law of gravity. But I didn't understand, for example, if that will help you in a personal level to build a judgment on someone, because someone who has critical way of thinking, I put it on the side of open-minded person, because the difference between open-minded and closed-minded is someone who is closed-minded is usually when, for example, when he's built his way of thinking based on experience of others, maybe something that he saw on the television. I'm going to give you an example. For example, I'm going to give you as someone who lives in, for example, an Arab country, how, for example, it doesn't mean it is true. Someone who lives, for example, in the USA. For example, someone who is closed-minded, for example, Arab, closed-minded someone who sees, for example, USA, he will see that the incidents of gun people shooting. The first one, he say, okay. The second incident would happen, he will give his opinion based on what he saw on the news. The third one, he will say, for example, he will give generalization like, this has happened every time, means you the people who are living in that country are crazy, for example. But someone who, for example, open-minded person, he will give his own opinion based on the facts, based on he search on the news, why he start asking why this happened. And he will say, this may be the law. It's not about the people, it's about a law. So this is how I think this is the same thing happen when, for example, someone from USA, for example, who perceive things from Arabs, he will see that all are terrorists. And for example, just only the closed-minded people who say they are all of them that are terrorists, and they generalize all Arabs, even Arabs, they are not. Or not all of them are Muslims. They say, okay, this is the Muslim, and they will generalize its religion because he doesn't know. He's closed-minded person. Yeah, but someone who has critical way of thinking, he will ask always the question why, and he starts researching, and he says, okay, this is. I will search, I will say why. I will never give, for example, final judgment on people or someone, and after that he will have his own opinion, and no one can control him. No one can control someone who has critical way of thinking. No one.
Well, okay, so we have to think about this carefully, I think. So the whole point of critical thinking is to judge something. That's the point of critical thinking, is to make a decision, to make an evaluation, okay? That's the purpose, okay? If you look at creative thinking, it's not judgmental. It's not saying that you know, this is right and this is wrong. Creative thinking says this is A, this is B, okay? Critical thinking says, okay, this is A and B, and A is wrong and B is right, okay? That's the difference. So when we think about the example you gave, critical thinking is about judging something, okay? It's specifically about evaluating, you know. So I would make the argument for the example you gave is that, you know, and I'm not saying, again, one is not right, one is not wrong. They are what they are, okay? But but I think that, you know, what we find is that, and again, we're all different. You know, I believe people should question things. I think that's very healthy in society. You know, again, you know, my view is there's some things I don't question because I believe in them. Okay, there are things I do question. Okay, and both of those are healthy to me. Does that make sense, Soso?
Yeah, absolutely, I agree with you. But for me, I think that we should question everything. For example, when your daughter have something in her, for example, she has money, you will ask her, where did you get this money? Who gave you this money? It's a way of protection. You protect your daughter, you protect your, for example, anyone in the family. You have to question why and how this happened. So to give your I think it's a way of self-respect to you and the protection for yourself and for others around you. You have to ask question why and how, and the solution. If there is a problem, you will have the solution. You will have the right solution to the problem if there is a problem.
Okay.
Some problems. Probably some problems are not easy to solve, but I mean, no. And you can have questions, but not all of the questions could be answered, I guess.
Well, and I think that's part of it as well, is that you know, there's also a relationship between questioning and trust, right? And okay, so let's take the point you just made, okay? Yeah. So if my daughter said, let's take for an example, okay? I'll use my daughter. Okay, so when she was 16, okay, when she was still a teenager, okay, sometimes she would say, okay, well, Dad, I'm going to go out with my friends, okay? The logical thing, a lot of people will say, okay, well, where are you going to go? How long are you going to be there? Who are you going to be with, right? Right?
Yeah, good question.
When are you going to come home? Okay, well, okay, so my daughter and I had a long talk about this one day, okay? Because she asked me, because that's the way I was originally, okay? She says, well, Dad, okay, I know that you're my father, and I know you care about what's going to happen, but you know, there are some times that I feel like you don't trust me, and I would tell her, I would say, it's not a matter of trust, it's, you know, I'm your father, I care. Well, Dad, okay, but you know, I will tell you what I think I need to tell you sometimes, and if you're not okay with that, you can ask questions. But what she was trying to tell me is that at some point in time, I trusted her to make some right decisions without questioning the basis for those decisions. Okay, does that make sense what I just said?
Yeah, and you don't trust other people.
When we get into relationships, okay, think about relationships. When we get into relationships with people, and someone says, okay, well, I want to go out with my friends for lunch. Okay, why are you going out with your friends? How long are you going to be out with your friends? Okay, yeah, I know. I just think that it can, I'm not saying it always does, but it can create an environment where I think, you know, trust becomes then a factor, because the natural reaction is going to be, well, you know, why are you asking me all these questions, right? I told you I'm going to go with my friends, okay? All right, don't you? So I think we have to be, my opinion is we have to be careful about that as well. There's a level of questioning that I believe is appropriate, but I think it can also lead to other things that are not healthy, okay? And, you know, so again, just based upon my own experience.
Yeah, you can say, excuse me, Jamila, just 1 second. Yeah. You can just simply tell her, I trust you, but I don't trust the people around you. So this is it. You can let her, but you don't trust the others. I don't know who are there. And do I know them? I don't trust the education of other people. You treated your daughter, you educated her very well, but she's around the people that you don't know. You have to be careful, yeah.
But I trust her judgment to make the right decision, to be around the right people.
No.
Really? 16? Never. Never.
Okay. Go ahead, Jamila. Go ahead.
No, I mean, she said that we always need to question everything. I mean, this is not realistic because there's always this trust factor that if someone has an expertise in a domain, we should trust them. For example, in most cases, you have problem in a company. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Oh.
Yeah. So people in a company or in a team, they.
Go ahead. There is a delay.
What is
Go
it?
ahead.
Go ahead.
Copy.
Yeah. So people, for example, in a team, they would question the other members, but they don't have the expertise. They don't have enough knowledge to criticize. Not again, you can criticize in a positive way or in a negative way, but again, to me, there are some situations where you can question things even if you don't have some kind of knowledge or expertise, but there are some areas where you just can't because you don't have enough knowledge. For example, so when you go to a doctor, okay, you will not ask them, okay, why are you giving me this kind of medicine? Why this? Why that? You just trust them because you know that they have. Well, most people don't do that, right? Because to me, if you question their knowledge, you would, instead of going to one doctor, you would go to 10 or 20, right?
What's wrong with that?
And we don't do that. We just trust people because we.
You know,
guys, just let me tell my opinion. I never question too many things because to me, I think it's just too stressful, and I think we have enough stress in life. And I would not go, okay, question this and that. Why is that? How is that? Okay, I just take it. That's good for me. This is how I work.
You
Maybe
prefer to be lazy.
Different.
Yeah.
I don't know. Not lazy. No, I respect. I mean, I respect things, and I respect the expertise of people around me, and I trust people also. If someone says, okay, this is right for you, because from my personal experience, this is right, I would trust them.
Well,
I don't need to question that.
The problem is here. When you have many people, they are all expert in their field, but one say one thing, the other say another thing, the other say a different thing. They are all specialized in the same field. And you're talking about, accepting someone because of their credential, and that's something dangerous to do. For instance, there are many scientists who said that who provide something and they show something. They say this is the fact, and they also say that they believe that. For instance, that there is a Sasquatch, there is a Bigfoot on California, and that you should believe them because they are expert in their fields. But what they say, what they presented you, is something that is not related to his field. So it's not like because you have somebody that is expert in one field, you would believe everything that person said. You would believe everything that comes out from his mouth. You wouldn't do that. If today Rick tells me that the right process by going which to provide a better revenue for a company, I would trust him because that, yes, I agree that it is his field, he knows a lot about this. But if he also tell me that last night he was abducted by aliens, I wouldn't say, yes, I believe you because you're an expert in everything and in your field, you have never lied before, and therefore you are a trustworthy person. You have always been trustworthy for me, and I will believe whatever you say. No, you should always question things when they don't make sense. It doesn't matter from who it comes from. So I agree with Sofio that we should always question things, everything, as much as we can. Otherwise, it's just shutting down your brain because you don't want to think about it.
Well, you guys have so much energy. You question that every day.
No, Jamila, it's not about, for example, for people who, for example, who sees us as people who questioning all the time. They think that we are stubborn. And we are, for example, we don't understand. We are stubborn, and we seek for attention, or seek for to be special, to be unique. But the most important thing for us is we are not convinced. Convince me, and I will be with you. As long as I'm not convinced, I can't be with you. I can't agree. I'm not convinced. This is the simple thing. It's very simple. But some people say you are stubborn. You are, for example, for some occasions, why you are wearing like this? I'm wearing because I like it. No, because you are stubborn. I told you not. It's not good, and it's not. No, I'm not convinced. I like my phone, old phone. I don't want to change it because I have reasons why I like it. But some people, why you don't change your phone? Why it's old? I like it because I'm not convinced to change it as long as for me it's worked very well. I don't need to change. But for some people say, okay, you are looking to be unique or something. But as long as I'm not convinced, I can't say I can't agree, or I can't be like you, for example.
This is very dangerous. This, you know what? I do believe this is where critical thinking can be a mess.
Jamila,
to be honest,
what's the dangerous thing? Am I audible? Jamila,
yes, you are.
You know what is? Yeah, you know that what the dangerous thing is. Some people, because it's all about our education. For example, when we educate, for example, our kids to be patronized, people will tell you to do things, you will do it right away. I think this is dangerous because when they grow up, when they don't have a dependent point of view, for example, anyone can manipulate them, anyone can tell them, go and kill that person. He won't say, no, I'm not going to kill because it's wrong, but he will do things because he won't ask, he won't question. I will do things like that. I will kill. It can be extreme. So I think this is very dangerous. That I'm afraid some people use that for some people like that who never question. Yeah, this is the dangerous thing.
Well, there's a logical time. I think there's a logical time to question some things, and for children growing up, they need to be taught both of these skills. They need to be taught creative thinking skills, and they need to be taught critical thinking skills. Okay, both of them have value for all of us, right? Both of them do. Again, you know, for myself or anybody else, which is probably not very many people here, except maybe Mary that's raised a kid. Okay, we know that when we work with our kids, you know, we try to teach them both of these things, okay, to give them a level approach, okay, to look at things objectively, but also to look at things creatively.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
My
Still isn't it?
hard, okay? Okay, so listen, I think we probably went, anybody have any last comments they want to make? We went a little bit over today. Any last comments? Sam? Okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Of course you do.
Just one thing related to what Rick said before. Teach your children how to think, not what to think. That's it.
Okay.
I want to say what So said was very interesting and very important. The fact that you should think, otherwise other people would do it for you, and I think this makes critical thinking very important in our lives.
Yeah, you know, I think it just depends on the stage of your life. I am in a stage of my life where I would love to have someone think for me, right? Okay, tell me, please do that. You know, this is the right thing. This is the best thing to do. I just feel like I don't have enough energy to think, to dissect things. What's the good thing? What's the bad thing? So I just think it's different. Really, it is different. It depends on your age, your the level.
I think
I don't know, the stage you are in.
I think it has also to do with experience. For instance, when I go to the doctor and he says I have to take this medicine or I have this, I question it, and I also go to other doctors or I search on the internet, because a friend of mine, her father, he was very sick and he had cancer, and he went to the doctor, and the doctor said, you know what, keep on smoking, you have cancer anyway. And so he wasn't really interested in his health. And so when my friend heard of it, she also went to other doctors, and the other doctor said that the first doctor is crazy, don't listen to him, and you have to treat him, and they give a totally different opinion, you know. So I want to say that there are some doctors who don't really do their job very good. Not only doctors, also other people. And this is why sometimes you have to question it, especially when it has to do with your health or something that's very important in your life.
I guess I'm not smart about that. I just trust. Like, hey, you are the experts. whatever you say, I just take it. I don't know.
Okay. So, anybody else? Catherine, Saif, anybody else? Mary?
Yes, this topic is so complicated. I don't know and what I can say. For me, creative thinking and critical and thinking both are important, but we can't focus on only one thing. For me, if you question everything, you will be tired, so tired. You even do not have sense. You have time to make decisions, right? And you don't know what you need to do. And sometimes you even do not have time to question things, right? You just make your decision and depend on your feelings. And like me, I'm blind. You all know, right? When I run my massage parlor and I acted as a masseuse, and I was the only one in my massage parlor who didn't need to ask my customers, which bed are you on? Are you in, right? Or are you lying on back? I didn't do that, not because I could see something. I could see nothing. I even couldn't see the night. I didn't know when it's night, when it's daytime. But I have my way to judge. If my customer didn't talk to me, I try to greet them and I haven't seen you for a long time. And of course, this is a way for me to find where the person was, right? And of course, when if the person replied to me, I can judge whether he lays on back or on breast because of the direction of the voice. I didn't need to ask. I get the question, but I just do it.
Yes. Great for you. You will live a long life.
Well, and again, it's something that you guys said is that, there's only so many hours in a day, right? We all know that, right? So to me, it's a matter of how I use my time most effectively. If I question everything, okay, I would not be able to focus on the things I consider to be more important. So for me, I prioritize my time based upon what I think, again, is important. And for those things I consider to be important, I need to answer to, I will question it. If I have, for example, if I have a relationship with somebody and there's trust there, I may not ask so many questions. Okay, I may accept their response without asking additional questions, because to me that's the most way of managing my time. So that kind of goes back to what you were saying, Jamal, in terms of when we look at our time and how we want to use our time. I think this also comes down to what do we think is the most efficient way, because to me, I just literally physically don't have the time necessarily to do that. But there are times it's important enough to ask those kind of questions, okay, or to look at something from that standpoint. So it just depends. Okay, so we are gonna wrap up. I think somebody just joined us. I don't know who it was, and I apologize for that, but we actually have to get going. So listen, everybody, thank you for Video Friday. Okay, thank you, Jamila.
So thank you. Thank you.
Okay, so everybody, take care of yourselves. Great discussion. We will talk to you later. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for all of you.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.